Good morning, everyone. Welcome to 9 a.m. public meeting of the BOCC. We have Paul Bricknell with us today to lead us in an invocation with the Cowlitz chaplaincy.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, commissioners. Let's take a moment and pause and reflect. Heavenly Father, we come before you humbly, recognizing that you're the one who started the day and you're the one who ends the day. And all the other things that you, while we were sleeping, you were working. And I ask that you would continue to give us as your, I pray that you give the commissioners wisdom. I pray that you give them a listening ear. Help them to hear what our county is saying. Help them to lead well and with integrity. And we ask that you would just continue to go before us in all things. I ask that you watch over everyone, from the young to the old, and that you would continue to lead us and guide us. And today we ask in your name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. You want to join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Smith, good to see you today. Lloyd, yeah. I'm not used to without your camera. Yeah. I would entertain a review motion on the minutes.
Mr. Chair, move to approve the minutes of April 14th through 16th.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Any questions, comments, corrections? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. We'll run down consent agenda. We have agreements, contracts, bid awards. Items 1 and 2 are related. These are both on the South Cloverdale Road project that we've been working on for quite a while. It's revise the federal funding so that a portion of the federal funds are applied to the local agency construction phase. The Fed gives you a certain timeline to do some of that. This project has been delayed, so you can transfer those funds. It's 5,000 on each of those, 5,000 on item 1, 5,000 on item 2. You can apply it to the local construction phase. It's not an increase in the project. It's just a small transfer of funds to beat a deadline. Change order for the contract with Columbia River Contractors. They're the ones that were not installing new guardrail, but replacing existing guardrail that was damaged. We had a contract with them. There's been some additional work that needs to be done in the amount of $11,770. The big portion of that is Castle Rock will be picking up the bill of $75.25 for some work in their area. We have a resolution to sell a tax title policy to the city of Longview for public purposes. The total bid is $19,1262 with incurred cost of $314.50. This is a small piece that they're Columbia Heights. They're doing some work on Columbia Heights, and it's a small sliver that we're selling to them. A tax title piece is something we take because they haven't paid. Somebody at some point in time has not paid on it. We take it back. We send it through. This has been through an auction. Nobody's bid on it. It's kind of an oddball little piece. It just works for their road work, giving them some extra space. So, and we have the ability, since it's been through auction, we have the ability to sell it to another municipality, and we're selling it for what we have into it. So that's what that is. Board correspondence, letter dated 4/22/25 to Elisa Domenico, pointing to the Yale Valley Library District. Letter dated 4/22/25 to Imelda Ochoa, appointing her to the Yale Valley Library District, as of July 9th of 2025. They have a person retiring, and so they met with us and they had these two, and one's just a little later will pick up when it retires. These are both 5-year terms. The first one will expire at the end of July 30/30. They both will expire at the end of July 30/30. Letter dated 4/29/25 to Mara Reese, thanking her for the application to the Yale Valley Library District. Letter dated 4/29/25 to Eric Reese, thanking him for application to the Yale Valley Library District. Letter dated 4/29/25 to Charlotte Stoll Smith, thanking her for the application to the Yale Valley Library District. In affidavit of posting resume for the month of March 2025. And we had vouchers last week in the amount of $3,357,626.29. And that is the consent agenda. If we have any questions on it. Seeing none, I call for a motion.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Last chance for public comments. I'm seeing no hands, so we'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We have a couple motion items. Public Works. I don't know who's Sean leading that. Okay.
Good morning, Commissioner Sean Rowe, Public Works. The first item before you today is a sole source procurement for Pano Rapid Detect to detect wildfires at the early stages, enhance emergency response time, and protect both public safety and natural resources. So this is intended to focus on the headquarters landfill for fires that may initiate outside of operating hours. So we have a quick and efficient response time to those items. As an ancillary item, it does monitor a wide area around the tower itself. It's monitored through AI first. Those notifications would be then reviewed by a human, and then from there either respond to the delegated response areas, either ourselves or the local fire department, or both, depending on how we set it up. This is the first part of it. So normally when we do a bid, we would do a bid award after we've received those bids, and then award a contract secondary. Because this is sole source, there is no bid award. This is taking that place. And then we'll come back to the board again for the final contract itself.
And you expect that to be, I think we talked yesterday, in the neighborhood of 40,000 a year, right?
Yeah, we'd expect that
area.
for about $40,000 annually for a 5-year term.
And this system, DNR uses it, you know, on their lands.
Yeah.
This detects, I wrote down yesterday, like particles, fire particles in the plume is what it's looking for.
Yeah, so it detects the plumes that come off depending on the size of them, the type of fire. Some of the other people that use this in Washington State are going to be energy companies such as Avista Energy, Pacific Core, PSE, Avista Energy. And then we also have U.S. Forest Service in Washington DNR. And then many other companies throughout Washington, Oregon, California, Colorado, Texas. So it seems to be a growing enterprise for this kind of detection.
In the past 18 months, we've had two, 3 fires up there.
Savannah Clement, Public Works. So landfill fires occur, I would say regularly, and by that I mean maybe weekly on the fill as we are covering garbage. We're on site oftentimes when it happens. However, we have had instances in the last few years where we've had what we would consider larger fires outside of normal business hours. So not on the open face of the fill where you're going to see a lot of like the lithium batteries that would cause fires, things of that nature. So to answer your question, yes, we've had a couple fires that we would consider outside of business hours that were, scary. And we want to make sure that we are, again, preventing them if we can, and then detecting them as soon as possible and responding as soon as possible. And so this Pano AI system will help us achieve that faster response and detection. I'm kind of a visual person, so just for the audience and members of the community, Pano AI is essentially a video camera on top of a tower. And so this map up here, it's color coded, but it's got 3 towers that we're working on, or off of, excuse me. And one is very near our landfill, and that's the Signal Peak Tower. Is that correct? And so these large cameras are constantly monitoring the sky, essentially in the tree lines, and that's how DNR is using them. And that's why we want to capitalize on that use, because they're using it for the same reason. Their reason is forest fire detection, and our reason, is fire detection at the landfill. And so we can work with them and partner and achieve both of those by using this at our tower.
And Savannah, correct me if I'm wrong, but based on that map that you have there, another benefit to it will be that it'll also help with civilian home fires and other within that, within those circles. So
Right.
we're not only using it for the landfill, but by default, the citizens are also going to be able to
Correct.
benefit
Mhm.
from that.
Yeah, and emergency response too, in other aspects. And maybe it's not a forest fire, maybe it's a fire at another, larger structure, and that we would have the ability to potentially detect much, much quicker by utilizing this.
Yeah,
Mhm.
this is something that we had an emergency management system workshop last week where we went through and audited the county, what we do good and what areas that we are deficient in. And this is one of those areas where I think it's gonna give us a big improvement for really not a lot of money in comparison to what other things are costing.
Absolutely.
So what's your expected day one? When's this thing gonna be in operation?
Yeah, so if the board chooses to approve this today, we would move forward and start working on a contract to execute. And at that point in time, we'd bring it back to the board. Once that's executed, we expect within the next 3 to 6 weeks after that.
Okay.
Go ahead, Tim.
So you mentioned the camera. What type of camera is that? Is this like a thermal camera or something?
It's not thermal imaging. That's a great question, because that's what our next probably request to the board will be, a thermal camera imaging, which will be closer to the fill. This is truly video camera footage.
Yeah, and so to get a little more deep in the technical side, it actually has 2 cameras on the tower. They're 360 turns, so at all times we have a 360 view. They have 30 times optical zoom within them, so you can really zoom in and see what's going on. And then those are all available for real-time view from multiple users to log in on either the phone device or other applications, so they can, if there is a notice to, let's say I'm at home at 8 o'clock at night, and I get a notice on my phone, I can open it up, see what's going on there, and then we can start initiating any protocol for staff or fire emergency at that time. Or we can say, oh,
It's a burning, somebody's burning, yeah.
somebody else's stuff.
That's handy. But I'm just curious about, how this would work, being straight video
Mhm.
in super cloudy or foggy weather,
Mhm,
you mentioned the tree, like measuring at the treetops.
Yeah,
So,
it's much higher than the treetops.
Oh.
Did you want to?
Yeah,
so what are you looking
elaborate.
to detect there exactly with straight video at that level?
So it's going to be the particle plumes coming off the fires themselves. So this is more of a macro, large scale view.
Mhm.
And then we'll have also our micro view with the thermals on the fill itself. So it's a 2-prong approach to that response and identification at that side.
Okay.
And could you also speak to the fact that the monitoring system that is being used and how the AI learns what certain plumes are, and so we can not send a 4-alarm fire out for somebody
Right.
burning in their backyard?
Sure, 100%. So yeah, it's AI, it's always learning. It is first initiated by the AI protocol, and then there's a secondary view by person at Pano AI staff themselves. And from there, then it would respond to either ourselves, staff members, or a fire emergency at that time. Depending on the fire type, there are a lot of different types of plumes. If it's a wildfire, say a small backyard burn, we all do, and a few weeks ago myself. And it's able to identify the differences between those. I can't speak to the detail of how it knows. That's beyond me, but that's our understanding at this time.
And when it picks it up, the monitoring immediately calls dispatch,
Mhm.
correct?
Yes, after the AI has notified their staff, they'll make that determination at that time.
Okay. Any other questions? Good. Would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion for approval of the sole source procurement of the panel rapid detect system.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 6, the sole source procurement for the panel rapid detect. Last chance for questions. Seeing none, call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So good morning, Susan Eugenius, County Engineer. I have the next two items before you. So item number 7 is the Italian Creek Culvert Replacement Project. The bid award, this project will replace the culvert on Italian Creek Road at milepost 1.9. It's a FEMA-funded project for replacement for a damaged culvert after a storm event. We received 7 bids, with the lowest bidder withdrawing their bid based on some errors. So the lowest responsible bidder is DeWitt Construction at a cost of $434,355, which is below, over $100,000 below the engineer's estimate.
Any questions? Okay, entertain a motion.
I move approval of motion item number 7.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 7 to DeWitt Construction on the Italian Creek Road culvert replacement. Check for hands real quick. Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So item number 8 is also a bid award. This is the bid award for the Garlock Road Delameter Creek Fish Passage Project, a bid award to Western United Civil Construction. We also received 7 bids for this item. This project will replace the existing box culvert with a 55-foot span steel arch culvert. The bid price was $2,349,120. It is over the engineer's estimate, with a big difference in the concrete price for the foundation.
We've been chatting about this one for a while.
Yes.
Different times. Any questions, comments on that particular one? Yeah.
It's okay.
I live in Castle Rock and I go Delameter quite often. I can't picture anywhere where it would really warrant a fish passage under the road. Is it really necessary? I mean, we do have fish in whatever.
So in
Creek that's in
Delameter,
there?
yes, Delameter Creek is a documented fish stream. So
Yes.
yes, they have, and I'm sorry, I didn't look this up before I came, but there are documented, I believe, at least 2 types of salmon within Delameter Creek.
Okay, thank you. Another question I have, and it's not related to this, and I'm sorry. I don't mean to spring anything on you, I really don't. But living out in Castle Rock, a lot of times I'll take the frontage road, Pleasant Hill Road. And there is a one-lane culvert thing that's been there for a couple of years. Are you right from?
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Okay, okay. My question is, why didn't they put it to standard, to road standard, instead of just what they did in the first place and not have to redo it at a later time?
So that is a temporary bridge that we have that the county owns. It generally sits at one of our road shops unless we lose a culvert like we did in this location. The replacement project is being funded by FEMA. So yes, this is a FEMA federally funded project. We are at about 75% design with the intention of to pull that temporary bridge out and replace it with a final bridge. As long as our permitting flows along, we're looking at going to bid this fall.
Okay, so I would have to ask that question to FEMA then, correct? Because,
About the temporary bridge?
right, to me, it's redundancy. Having, if they had done it well the first time, they wouldn't have to go back and do it a second time.
So at the time that the culverts failed, a different group of commissioners made the decision that, yes, they wanted to reopen that roadway instead of leaving it closed until the time that we had the final design complete. So, and since we already own that bridge, the cost was really getting the crane to move it out there and put the foundation in. So
Okay.
that is why that decision was made.
Okay, thank you very much. I was just curious.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I entertain a motion.
I move approval of motion item number 8.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 8, bid award to Western United Civil Group LLC for the Garlic Road Bridge fish passage replacement. Check for hands, I'm seeing none. Nobody else? Okay, we'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, before we head into public comment, this Wednesday, we have Department of Ecology in. The following Wednesday, and that's at 2:30. Following Wednesday at 2:30, we have Community Mediation Center in, and I see / district court update, so have a couple things going on that particular day. Last week, we had Department of Wildlife in, and Commissioner Rader did a good job of speaking with him. I'm not sure he got a lot of answers, but I thought I'd have him touch on some of that, because I thought it was an interesting meeting to listen to.
Yeah, I just want to start out by saying how I think it's interesting that when we change or use words, how we can add $1.5 million to a project because it's not a culvert, it's a fish passage project. Drives me insane. But last week we had the Fish and Game Department in, and it was the regional officers. And they really didn't have many answers for a lot of the questions that were asked of them, which I understand they're not the ones that make the policies. But, you know, the Fish and Game Department has increased the licensing fees for fishing and hunting by 38% this year. And my question to them was, you know, the fees for licensing continue to go up, and we have fewer fishing opportunities, shorter season, fewer hunting opportunities. They're closing down hatcheries. And where do we see this 38%? How do we justify that? Where is that money going? And I knew that they weren't going to be able to answer it, but I thought I'd ask the question anyway. The Fish and Game, the funding for the Fish and Game goes into the general budget. And if you look, the fishing industry in the state of Washington alone brings in over $2 billion a year. And the fact that we don't have enough money to continue to fund hatcheries and to continue the conservation of wildlife and wildlife areas in our state is absolutely it's abhorrent. I mean, it's a derelict of responsibility as far as I'm concerned. But we talked about the SEALs, and what they're doing. One thing that I found interesting that Chairman Dahl caught, in one of the answering of the questions was that they mentioned the management of wolves, in our state, which is interesting because they've, upheld that there aren't any, but there are. We do have wolves in our area on the Mount St. Helens Tree Farm. I've heard of myself. But they, they're talking about, they're also doing, blacktail management, studies, into research the number of blacktail that we have. I asked, are we including hunters in any of these research, projects that are going on that citizens are paying for? The response to that was no, which I thought was very interesting because hunters have the best, they have their thumb on where animals are and how many are in each area. Game cams, being in the woods, whatever it is. And I'm pretty sure she said that the majority of that study is done by air, right? Helicopter?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know how you're gonna see a black-tailed deer in a helicopter, but, they were very, very willing to answer whatever questions they had answers for. They did offer to meet with me, outside of this so that I could talk a little bit more about it, but, they did admit that we are closing down hatcheries. We're reducing the number of fish, in rivers, due to them wanting to reclaim the native, strain of fish, which is a ridiculous argument in my mind also. There's anymore, there really is no such thing as a native fish if you have a hatchery on a river. But I thought it was a good conversation and an eye opener that, and this is where I really think that we need citizen involvement in this. The director of the Fish and Game Department is appointed by the governor. It's not an elected position. If you look, the board members of the Fish and Game Department, other states have made this a law that they need to have had a fishing or hunting license for at least 10 years in that state before they're going to even allow them to sit on that board. They can't just be a graduate from one of the local universities and then automatically sit on that board. And there needs to be some accountability to the public for the decisions that they make, because these are natural resources that we as citizens in Washington cherish and love and want to hand down to future generations. And the mismanagement of them, particularly with predators, it's just crazy to me. They have, according to what she said, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought she said that they turned over the hoof rot study to WSU. They're no longer really involved with that. They didn't really
Right.
have a report for us on what's going on there, either. But when you look at the management of the predators in our area, it's evident that what the end game is, with regards to the herds in our area, and the same thing with the fishing. And so we really need the community to get involved, to speak out, and to do whatever we can. I know it's an uphill battle. There's a lot of things that are frustrating in our state. But, I've had conversations recently with quite a few people who are like, especially after this last legislative session, that I'm moving to Idaho, I'm moving to Texas, I'm moving to Florida. And though I understand that sentiment, if we continue to run from the problems, we're not going to be able to hide from it. Eventually, it's going to be everywhere. And so my belief is we need to grow where we're planted and do what we can here, because this is a beautiful place to live. It really is. And I'm grateful to live here. And I think that we all need to start, and obviously you guys are involved, but as a whole, the community, we need to realize the valuable resources that we have in the state and not allow bureaucracies to mismanage those and to take them from us. So.
Yeah. It was an interesting conversation because I think Commissioner Rader touched on it. These people at these level were from Region 5, and I think, to me, it's just like the local ecology. They're willing to work with you and do things, but their hands are tied by bureaucratic nonsense above them. And they don't have authorities to do what we would all consider the right thing. I mean, they have, in the Region 5 alone, there's 19 enforcement officers in this region. I think it's more of an enforcement thing than a management thing. But anyway, it was an interesting conversation, and we'll have them in again. This time it was just kind of general overview of everything they do. next time we'll try to get more specific, like fist passage or one item type thing and get more in depth to it, but anyway, we try to bring you stuff we think might be interesting to you. I don't want to bore you with all kinds of nonsense, but when we do have those type of things, we'll bring it forward. We'll turn it over to you if you have something.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'll carry on with the previous discussion with the Fish and Wildlife. What I would request or suggest is that you put a little notice out ahead of time so we can submit questions, and maybe they can come prepared to answer a few questions specifically, and quit this coming out of the closet not knowing any answers. So maybe we can help you put them on, or have them represent us. That's the real word. Second item regarding wolves is that anyone can go on to the K Diamond K student farm up at Republic, Washington, and get pictures of what wolves do to cattle and other that they're battling up there, et cetera. So they may have their head in the sand, but the people and the hunters and the ranchers know what's going on. Unfortunately, there's not much representation. Thirdly is that since I do have property in Eastern Washington, a year ago, Fish and Wildlife sent out a questionnaire asking about grizzlies and wolves in northeastern Washington. And I said, that's only if it's also in western Washington. Grizzly and wolves were more of a habitat in western Washington than in eastern Washington in the old days with the fish and the salmon, et cetera. So I made a statement that is discrimination against the people of eastern Washington when you only pick on eastern Washington. We need to use some of those key words, et cetera, that they want to key in on. So just a couple of things. I'm very sensitive for Fish and Wildlife and what they represent other than just trying to write tickets.
Yeah. That was, like was mentioned when she was talking about they monitor, Commissioner Rader had asked a question on predator animals and how do they, because the bear population is growing, cougar population is growing, and all those are predator to the elk and the other game. And her response was, well, they monitor that and they monitor the bear, the cougar, and the wolves. And I was sitting there thinking, she really said wolves? And so, and I thought Commissioner Rader had, he explained how those packs work. And I thought that was interesting that you can see how they're going to just keep expanding because a pack gets a territory, if I'm remembering right how to explain. And then as ones are, another alpha male wants to be an alpha male, it has to go find its own territory and start a new pack. Is that fairly correct?
Right.
Yeah. So you can see how it'll just keep expanding. It was an interesting conversation.
Yeah, and I would, the other thing that we need to recognize, and I'm sure that a lot of us do, is that science is evolving. It's changing all the time. I mean, it was a scientific fact 300 years ago that you couldn't get in a metal tube and fly across the world. But I'll give you guys an example. We were in Colorado and I was at the Rocky Mountain National Park, and the tour guide there, she made sure that she told us about the bachelor's and the master's that she had in biology, this and all this outdoor stuff and animal ecology. And as we're going along, she starts talking about the fact that the beaver population within the park is down because the coyotes are eating them, and that the size of the elk herd is now starting to diminish a little bit because there's not enough foraging because the elk herd is too big. And so their answer to that is that they're going to introduce wolves into the park. And my question to her was, what's the thought process? Where's the science behind introducing an apex predator of that type that kills indiscriminately? If you don't think wolves are going to kill beavers if they have a chance, that doesn't make any sense. And the elk herd within the park is going to get slaughtered if you introduce wolves with no management. And I just asked her the question. I said, in all the stuff that you learned at school, at what point were hunters involved in that? At what point is mankind involved in that process? And it's not. They try to take us completely out of it, and you can't do that because I asked her, I said, wouldn't it make more sense to issue, if you want to cull 40 elk out of the herd, issue 40 game tags and allow hunters to come in, take out 40 elk, and then you know exactly how many elk are being taken out of the herd. Whereas you introduce a herd of, or a pack of wolves, they're going to kill indiscriminately. They're not going to say, oh, we've reached our limit this month, we're not going to kill another one. So the management of the predators, it makes no sense from a biological standpoint, because they eliminate humans out of the equation. And if you're going to introduce an apex predator of that type, you need to introduce another apex predator that's going to keep that one in check. But that's not what they're doing. And the elk herds and the deer, and they have the same thought process with fish, with the seals and the sea lions. There's just, it's poor management. And God, when he created this world and all those animals, he created us as part of that. And you can't take us out of that equation and expect things not to go out of balance.
What I found, I guess, frustrating that I see happen while I observed all that going on and Steve kept them busy for a better part of an hour, was, no, if you ask pointed questions, wanting an answer from them, the response is always, well, we didn't make that rule, somebody else did. They're always pointing their finger somewhere else. They're not responsible for it. They're just acting on it. And to me, that's that same old frustrating bureaucratic crap that you end up trying to narrow somebody down and get them focused on solving a problem, and they're busy pointing their finger somewhere else. And I just, found it very frustrating.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think the Lord wants us to be stewards of the animals. Going back to the coyote issue you were talking about, we have a lot of coyotes where I live. And I know it sounds silly because I have this little chihuahua and to be so upset, but I can't even let her out of the house in the evening. I have to go out with her because we hear the coyotes and we know they're close. And is there any, I mean, they get mice and I know they get there, but they also get, if they get familiar with the houses and things, they get into our living area. Is there any control of them? I mean, since we're talking about a prey animal, they don't seem to bring the coyote up. And granted, when he's out in the forest, they're fine, but they're not staying out there. They're coming in and causing havoc. With my son over on Sighttown Road, he lives over there, and they have to worry about their chickens. And so anyway, I was just wondering if they mentioned the coyote and any control of coyote.
No, there's really no coyote season. You can hunt them year round with a small game license.
24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Say that again?
You can hunt coyotes whenever you
Oh,
want.
you can't. Oh, well, we do. But I didn't
I must say
realize.
a 223 caliber for you.
You just described the control right there.
Yep.
I do want to say, I really appreciate Commissioner Rader's knowledge and understanding of both the fish and the wildlife. His background in those things was great to watch that whole conversation take place.
So when it comes to like the wolves and the big cats, mountain lions, right? These animals, I know my predecessors hunted those things to extinction. That was their plan, and they hunted them all the time. I heard stories growing up about hunting wolves. If they knew a wolf was in the area, they went and killed it right away. I mean, the community would, because they eat people. And, that's the thing that we got going now with the big cats, is that bears, I don't think are an initial problem. Grizzly bear might be, but bears are shy and they pretty much stay away from people. They're smart enough to know that. But the cat is strictly instinct. It sees something moving, it's going to think about taking it down. And I don't want to be the predictor of doom, but we got the cat sightings on Columbia Heights out there and stuff. This is going to be a problem someday. One of them cats is going to drag off a kid, And I hope it isn't one of mine, because I got some kids living up there in my family, and um, it's like in a more closer range here, you shouldn't have cats running around like that where people are living, for sure, at the very least. And it's just, we've taken over management, as Commissioner Rader says. Part of that management, we need to be culling these herds of, it's like, say, issue some tags and let the hunters go out and take out the excess. We can't have a naturally stabilized balance of nature here, and have people living there at the same time, not with these big giant predators around. And, the cat's the biggest concern, but wolves are the same way. They'll get on something and there's no stopping them. And, they're bad news, it's like, but the cats worry me more. And really, honestly, our animal control guys should be out tracking down whatever cats we got in here and, around here at least, and eliminating those.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue. When I spoke with him, I was telling him that when I started hunting in 2000 here, I never saw a cougar. I mean, it was probably 15 years before I saw a cougar, because they're very difficult to hunt without a dog. And the last 5 years, we've seen cougar in the middle of the day every hunting season. And what's happening with the cougars coming into the general population is that a tom cougar has about an 8.5 to 9 mile radius that he patrols, and he doesn't allow other toms into that area. So if a mother cat has a litter one year and one of those is a tom, that next year it's getting kicked out, right? So if you take the woods, there's only so many 9-mile circles that we're going to have, and those cats keep getting kicked out of those areas, and they're getting pushed into urban areas. And to your point, a cougar will stalk you and hunt you, for sure. And when the food source is depleted, it's going to move on to a different area to try to find another food source. And unfortunately, I mean, the number of cougar sightings has increased dramatically within the last 5 to 10 years. And that's because we're not able to hunt them with dogs. And even at that, there are still cougars that are being shot every year because there's so many of them. And with dogs, that's one way to control and to really be able to manage that population. But to your point about bears, actually more people are killed by black bears than they are by grizzlies. And the black bear is actually raising havoc on our fawn birth rate, because in the spring, when the elk calve and the deer have their fawns, those bears are coming out of hibernation and they need protein. They're looking for the easiest thing to fill their bellies, and that is those fawns and those calves. And 2 years ago, I want to say it was 2 years ago, the Fish and Game Department voted on eliminating spring bear season. So that's gonna put even more strain on our elk herd and on our deer population, because we're not managing those predators correctly to keep them in check.
Yeah.
Guess I should just stay sitting up here, but, to your point about using the dogs, that was a good hunting technique, and it put the fear of us into those animals, because the animals, they got a way of knowing that stuff, you know what I mean? You hear the dogs coming, and, I used to go on dog hunting with, some guys that I knew that had them big dogs, and, you had to go for a long time because there wasn't much around. And like you're saying, I grew up here, running around all the woods and stuff all my life, basically, and I never saw a cougar until a few years ago. And that day, I just happened to come nose to nose one on a logging road, and it was huge. You know what I mean? That cat would have easily taken me down from behind. Luckily, I had the wind going my way, so I could be face to face with him. But that cat was bigger than me, and that, like I'm saying, I just think that I'm afraid for the disaster that's coming, because eventually one of them cats is going to drag off a kid, and just, it's going to be a bad thing. And eliminating dog hunting was a big problem with that,
And that's a natural consequence, is when you're not able to go and hunt those animals and help keep them in check. The size of a tom cougar has increased dramatically because they're not being
Yeah.
harvested. And so the cats that we have seen, huge. I'm talking, they're mountain lions.
Yeah.
They're not they're lions. They're big animals. Yeah.
Well, one I saw was like the logging road, and its feet were on the one track, and it was sideways in the road, you know, and it's like the feet were on one track, the foot of this one's in the other track, and the tail's off the road over here, and its head's off the road over there. That's how big that thing was. I mean, it's gigantic.
Yeah.
But bring back some dog hunting would be the best thing for that.
Yeah, I know that in the state of Oregon, they tried to, in the Blue Mountain Range, they tagged, I want to say it was 140 elk, if I remember the article correctly, and they looked at the survival rate of the calves, and it was a 14% survival rate because of the bear and the cougar in that area. It eliminated 86% of the calves in that season. And their answer was, well, we'll issue more cougar tags and more bear tags. That's not the answer, because a cougar, you can't hunt them without a dog unless you just
True.
accidentally see one. So you can issue 1,000 more tags and it's not going to reduce the population of the cat
Yeah.
unless you change the methodology with regards to how they're harvested.
That used to be a big thing here, you know, those of us that have been around here a long time, dogs were, you know, there was a lot of guys had the dogs, and it's fun to do. We need it back.
Well, I think just in the last year or maybe 2 years, wasn't the young lady down in, a jogger down in Portland that, she disappeared and they finally found her. She'd been killed by a cougar.
Yeah.
Don't ever run from a cat. That's like,
Them at all, though, that's the problem. They jump on you from behind, break your neck.
yeah.
Considering that they're raising the fee on the license and the deer tags, the elk tags and everything, and where is that money going, considering there's poor management? And also, you know, raising those prices is discouraging a lot of hunters from even going again. I mean, not everybody can afford all that stuff. But where's all this money going for the raise in fees? Any ideas?
They couldn't answer that. And to your point about it being so expensive, if you look at the influence that animal rights activist groups have on our state, I think the end result is to make it to where you just can't afford to hunt or can't afford to fish.
Right.
And that way they're going to get you, that's how they're going to stop
Yeah.
that activity.
So are they just closing the fish hatcheries because there's not enough money coming in, or obviously it's poor management like everything else?
Well, they're saying that's one of the reasons, but the other reason they're saying is because they want to preserve the native strain of salmon within those rivers.
Really?
Commissioner Rader's point to them, we've had fish hatcheries for I don't even know how many years. There's no native native anymore.
I think we're paying for more and more people to be sitting at a desk with supposedly a college degree behind their name, and they're doing research, or what they term to be research, and they're not doing field work and actually understanding what's happening. And the costs go up, as he said. It helps narrow down the number of people who can even afford to go hunting. And in that note, I've talked to a number of people who several years ago, before it ever got where it is now, just outright said, I'm done buying licenses. I'm not done hunting, but I'm done paying for it.
Yeah, because I know I came, you know, from my husband's side of the family. Everybody hunted, but they're just giving up.
Yeah.
They're, you know, they don't have the spirit for it that they used to have. So.
And
what
I
do
can
you think?
remember when I was a kid, you could get the hunting rules on about 2 pages. It had all the hunting rules on them, statewide rules. Now it's a book, I can't remember, what is it, 120, 130 pages thick.
Yeah, and who's going to read it? I mean,
I do.
completely through,
Yeah,
really.
If you're gonna hunt an
Yeah,
area, you better read it.
Because I mean, it's and my personal opinion is it's a racket. I mean, if you look at what the reg book says, and you look at what the website says, and you listen to what they say on their phone message, it's all 3 different things. I mean, so you can't just go by what's on the reg book. You have to actually call every morning to see if any regulations have changed on the river that you're fishing on.
Yeah, and they put that right in the fishing rules. It tells you that You can't live by what's in your hand in the book. You have to check on the regulations to see if they changed them yesterday while you were sleeping.
Yeah.
Well, I know my husband retired from Fish and Wildlife, and that's been, you know, a number of years ago. But he could have, he could tell you even then how the numbers in Olympia got changed to whatever they wanted it to be to look good for the public. But half of them probably didn't even know how to put a worm on a hook, you know, but yet they're sitting behind a desk and getting a good paycheck.
Yeah.
So it's still going on. Thank you.
Anything else? We have Board of Health at 10, so I'll just remind people of that.
Hi, guys.
Yeah.
My name is Glenn Sensenbaugh, and I represent the Faithful Servants Transitional Housing here in our community. I like the hunting stuff. That's really cool. I'm an archer, so I'm into archery a little bit. Fishing, I can't fish. I don't know how to fish. I tried. I don't catch fish. But I'm here because Faithful Servants is a really powerful ministry in our community, and it's changing lives. And it ain't only just changing the lives of the men of the program, it's changing lives outside of our program. And what I mean by that is we're doing an average of 300 to 400 hours of community service every single week to our community where people need help and they don't know where else to go, so they call us and we show up to help. The men of this program have over a 60% success rate in the last year and a half. 60% of the men have successfully moved into their own apartments, working full-time jobs, got their families back together, paying their bills, doing the right things, not putting drugs in their body and being a menace to society. Because we're a 100% faith-based program, we're having issues in getting grants. We have 2 houses that are just right across the street over here. We need more housing. I got a list of about 35, 40 guys that would like to get into our program. We deal with men coming out of prison. I just had to turn down 6 guys trying to find a place to secure themselves for when they get out into the community so they don't go back to their old behaviors because I don't have enough housing. I need houses. Well, having the toughest time is because I ain't gonna stop talking about Jesus Christ. That's my Lord and Savior. That's what changed me. That's what's changing the lives of these men over here. And because of that, we're running into issues. We need some help. We want to help our community. We're doing some amazing stuff with our community. The ministry's been up and running since 2011 here in our community. And we just need some help, and we just don't know what to do with it because we don't know where to get the help from. With a success rate of 60+%, it would seem like some funding would be more advocated to go to a faith-based program than something with a 2% success rate of other programs that our community is taking millions and millions of our taxpayers' money to try to help fund these places. I don't know what to do. I wish I did. I wish I had an answer for it. I'm kind of hoping maybe you guys can point us in some directions. We have rented 2 houses from the city of Kelso before. Maybe if you guys have some houses, this way maybe we can rent them from you. We're not asking for handouts. We're just asking for ways to make a better community, and we need some help. We want to help more people, and the only way to do that is for the community to step up and say, hey, this is what we can offer with you guys, with what we're offering our community. So,
A question. So I know that Faithful Servants has been around for a while, and there were women, there was a house for women as well. And is that still something that's going to continue, or?
we do want to open up another female house. We ran into some financial issues with the female house that we had up and running, so we closed it down and turned into a men's program. So this way we can try to raise some more finances, so this way later down the road that we can open another female housing program. But right now, we got 2 houses and we just need more. This way we can build up the funds. With the way the ministry runs, about 40% of the men right now are paying the shares of the housing. So 60% are new or just coming out of incarceration or just coming out of treatment facilities and stuff like that. So we got about 40% that are paying, 60% that ain't. And as that 40% are transitioning into their own places, that 60%, about 20% of them don't make it. The other 40% step into that position. And that's how we're funding the houses. We're not making anything off of it. We're just making enough to support our move jobs, to support the things that are going on, to try to help them in toilet paper, shampoo, toothpaste, toothbrush, rent, water, garbage, sewage. If you guys live in Kelso, you know how high the water bills are. Our water bill at our big house is $1,500 a month. I mean, $1,500 every 2 months. It's just, it's crazy. And, yeah.
I do want to say something positive about faithful servants. I've used them in the past, and just this past Friday, I think about 6 or 7, we got to come out to our property and brought a huge U-Haul and helped us for 2 hours empty the shop and take all that junk to the dump. And my husband and I could not have done that without their help. So I'm very grateful that we couldn't hire anybody, but we can certainly pay dump fees and give a donation to faithful servants because we believe in the ministry.
And that's one of, we'll get 5, 6 move jobs a week to where elderly are moving and stuff like that. And nobody else in the community wants to help. They call us, we go and help. We're trying to find ways right now. We got some elderly couples that are having roof issues. They don't know where to go to get help. They live on Social Security and they don't have anything. But we'll show up and do the work. We're just trying to find the funds to get them a new roof and the materials for it. We do lawn cleanups. We do property cleanups. We build little ramps in case somebody needs something on the front porch. I mean, we'll do anything and everything for our community because so many of us have taken so much from our community through our addictions and stuff. It's time to get back, and we're giving back, and we're doing everything we can to possibly help. We just need some help. And what that would be was we need more housing. The minute of the program can help support the ministry once we get the houses up and running. We need properties. We need grants that we're allowed to talk about Jesus, that can be accepted, because we're not going to stop talking about Christ. We're just going to keep on moving forward, but we could use some assistance, financial assistance, housing.
What's your name?
My name is Glenn Sensenbaugh. I'm the executive director of the program.
Glenn?
Yep.
A lot of, any of that type of stuff, a lot of times starts with our human health services and yesterday, we actually sit and we are going to schedule a workshop and talk over some of the things that are available through, we get opioid funds, we get different type of funds. So I think some of that information may come up and we haven't scheduled that workshop, but I'd be more than happy to make sure you guys knew about it so you could kind of hear from the horse's mouth as to what's out there and how you go about it.
Okay. Any other questions, guys?
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? We will adjourn this one and then we'll start Board of Health here real quick.